All right, everyone. Welcome once again. It is Friday, and that means it's time for the faces of, oh, God, I did it again. Manufacturing e-commerce success. I was looking at Curt. We were on the show last night, on my show last night, and I was just thinking we were rolling right into it, Curt. But this is time for manufacturing e-commerce success, and we are going to be talking about research and development tax credits today with Duncan Glenn. I'm Damon Pistalco, your co-host, and right over there, that pretty guy right next to me is Curt Anderson, co-host. Take it away, my friend.
Man, Damon, I've been looking forward to this one. This is going to be a great conversation.
Lots of questions. That's
happy
for sure.
Friday, everybody. March Madness is starting early here on our show. So this is going to be a good one. So let us know you're out there. Drop your note, give us a hello in the chat box. Give a big hello to our friend. So we've got Duncan Donut Glenn here today. Damon, did you know that's his name? I don't know.
The founder himself.
Donut. Is that right?
I haven't heard that one since elementary school, man.
Yeah.
We're right. That's the grade level that we're at, man. Is like we're third grade right here. So, Duncan, happy Friday. Welcome to the program. How are you, man?
Doing great. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to be here, guys.
All right, let's dive in. So first off, Duncan, a couple questions. We'd like to get to know you a little bit. So I'm going to open up with a question for you, Damon. I've never asked this one before. So, okay. Duncan, now where you're located? Where? Utah?
Yep, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Awesome. Okay, so a question for you: when you were a little guy growing up, who was your hero? Who was your hero that you looked up to as a little guy?
I mean, honestly, it was my dad. But in terms of like athletics, I'm really into athletics. It was Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. All right. Well, hey.
Now, let me clarify. I grew up in California, not Utah.
Yep.
So I've been here kind of, after school and everything. But that's why I would say Michael Jordan. Had I grown up in Utah, it would probably be Karl Malone, John Stockton.
Yeah. The mailman. All right. Great. So I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. So that's a great answer. Let's talk about Dad for a second. Why was Dad your hero?
I mean, just the way that he was always helping other people, showing me how to work hard and serve others, kind of instilled in me. And he's actually a scientist. I went into accounting and taxes, which is quite different, but seeing the opportunities I have to serve people and help them save money and do things like that, there's a lot of parallels there. So he kind of laid a good foundation for me, I would say.
Awesome. So Dad's a scientist. That's, so when people say like, well, it's not like your dad's a scientist. Well, yeah, he is a scientist, right? So, and what's Dad's name, please?
Greg
Glenn. All right. Hey, big shout out to Greg. And I know on your LinkedIn profile, you're a dad of 5, so you're following Dad's footsteps. Hey, Damon, we got a few friends here dropping notes.
Yeah, we do. We got Bohan is right here today. Greetings from the Netherlands. Cool. Alan's in here from Indianapolis today, and we've got Whitney Houston in the house.
Houston's in the house. So, and I think particularly Alan, dude, you're going to love this conversation. Yep. So, all right, Duncan, let's go here. So, Dad, Greg, big hero of yours. You grew up in the Bay Area. You end up, I believe you're a BYU grad. Man, talk about March Madness. They're going to be in the they'll be in the tournament here coming up in a week or so. Don't you think, Mr. Duncan Glenn?
Absolutely. Hopefully we can nail down a 5 seed, maybe a 4 seed if we're lucky.
Attaboy. All right, right. So, Cougs, right? Are BYU? Yep.
Yep.
Go Cougs. All right, so we're rooting for you, dude. So let's go here. So you're BYU grad. What inspired you? What led your talents, your passion, your purpose going into this whole like accounting tax world? Just share a little bit of like post college, what that looked like.
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been kind of good with numbers and whatnot, and really just looked at the accounting profession as a stable kind of necessity, and also really the language of business. So knowing that if I could learn accounting, I'd be able to kind of have conversations about all kinds of, business aspects that really laid the foundation for me. And then really just starting out working at a large local firm here in Salt Lake and developing relationships with the partners there, all the different managers that I worked with. And then the clients was just a really good foundation for my career.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. So let's slide in. So today we're going to do a deep dive into research and development tax credits. Now, I know, so our show, Manufacturing E-commerce Success, we target manufacturers. It's a big thing. And, every manufacturer is obviously looking for tax savings, great opportunity here. let's dive in. Let's get into a little bit of like 101, if you will. So let's start with, can you just explain to the folks, give us a 101 level, what is the research and development tax credit?
Awesome, definitely. So the research and development tax credit is a business income tax credit. Okay, so not something that you worry about on your individual return much. Although if you do have a flow through type of a entity structure, right? So an LLC, an S corporation, if you're structured that way, you actually do see the savings on your personal taxes, which is nice. But a lot of corporations also take advantage of this credit. Wanted to just at a high level, an income tax credit is different than your typical tax deduction. You all might be familiar with that phrase. You've got your revenues at the top, you've got deductions or expenses down below. That gets you to a taxable income number, right? They're going to apply a tax rate to that, and that's how much you have to pay the government after you apply the tax rate. Then the R&D credit comes in and it offsets dollar for dollar that tax liability. So it's actually much more powerful than a deduction itself. This has been around for over 40 years. And the purpose of it, Congress enacted it back in the day to help the U.S. be competitive in world markets. And so over the years, it has incentivized job growth in the U.S. in the tech sectors, specifically biological science, physical science, engineering, and computer science. So those are kind of the four fields that we focus on. Manufacturing definitely falls into the engineering aspect of this. And it's a great way for companies that kind of have a culture of innovation, process improvement, new products to be compensated really for those types of activities.
Excellent. Okay, so let's go here. So what I'm hearing, I heard LLC, could be S corp, could be sole proprietor. Is that correct?
Yep.
So all right. So that's a great thing. So maybe if you're familiar with this tax credit, there might be, I don't know, Duncan, if you come across this, if there's a myth, we're like, well, that's not for, we have a 10-person shop. That's not for me. That's for like the big corporations. But you're dispelling that myth. This could be for solopreneurs, 5 employees, 10 employees. So this is definitely an applicable tax credit for any size company, correct?
Absolutely. And that became even more so apparent after 2003. They used to have this rule in place that it was called the discovery rule. You had to discover essentially something new to the world to really qualify for this credit. Yeah. They changed that in 2003 and said, okay, as long as it's new to your company, then it's okay. So for example, software development, like people have been developing software for a long time. If you decide to create an app in your company to maybe automate some things, you can't make the argument that you created the ability to create an app. Like been around. That's been around forever. But if your business, your specific business hasn't done that before, then absolutely we can go and claim credits for you.
Okay, Duncan, man, you just perked my ears right up, Damon. Let's go there, right? So, all right. Let's say hypothetically, I'm just asking for a friend. Let's say hypothetically, there's a manufacturer on the planet that wants to get into, let's say, e-commerce. I'm just asking for a friend, Duncan. If a manufacturer wanted to get into e-commerce, that's a big, serious investment. That can be tens of thousands of dollars. That can be 6 figures, right? If it's new to them, are you saying, is that a tax? Is that?
Yep. So as long as we're able to tie it to one of those 4 areas, right? So if you're diving into e-commerce, I imagine that there's avenues we can find to relate that to computer science, just in terms of the logistics on the back end of website development, different API integrations for, whether you're trying to set up payment, options and abilities, different API integrations like that. So all of that being new to your company, diving into that space, absolutely. And the way it kind of works is you look at the time that's spent on different activities that are involved in creating the tech or the process. In this case, if you're diving into e-commerce, so if you have people that you're paying wages to and they're spending time, then we can capture a portion of their wages that turns into a qualified expense, right? If you're paying a third party, somebody who is not part of your company but has software development experience or API integration experience, you can pay them, and those payments can qualify for this R&D credit. So a couple different avenues there, types of expenses to qualify. The other one, well, there's a couple other ones. If you're creating any sort of software app or anything like that, and you're paying for computer rental space is what they call it.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that's kind of how it was with like big mainframes. You go and rent one.
Right.
Nowadays, we would call that Amazon Web Services,
right.
Microsoft Azure. And really, you're just paying for a subscription to use their computing data, right? To try to create, your app. And so those payments can be qualified as well. And then the last one is supplies expense. We can dive more into supplies because there's a lot of manufacturing examples of where supplies can be qualified. I would say software development, you don't typically have supplies that qualify.
Yeah. So I got it. Wow. Yeah.
There's a lot here, man.
There's a lot here. A
lot of meat on the bone, Damon.
Yes. So we're sitting there today. We're a manufacturer. We don't have an e-commerce website. We've got to buy the technology to enable our website. We've got to hire the people to do it. We've got to, all the way through, like you said, payment gateways and other things like that. So that might be one thing we want to look at. Wow. That's something for people that have to look at, they're looking at implementing this. That's one of the cost is obviously a hurdle. And you mentioned this before, and I want to go back to this again. Now, this is a tax credit. This is not a deduction or anything like that. So explain that just one more time again so people understand what that means.
Sure. So let's say you're a manufacturing company, you're diving into the e-commerce space. You get it all up and running. Your e-commerce abilities boost your revenue. Revenue is top line, right? That's dollars coming into the business. You also have expenses related to that. The expenses to create the website, the expenses to pay developers to create API integrations to give you payment options online, different things like that. Those expenses are deductions, okay? That's reducing the amount of your taxable income. You have all this revenue, you're offsetting it with business expenses. Part of those business expenses, namely wages, contract research, supplies if they apply, computer rental, you carve out a portion of those expenses that are related to the certain activities that qualify for this credit. And it generates, you go through a big formula, and at the end, it generates a dollar for dollar tax credit. That's generally going to be anywhere between 6 to sometimes up to 20% of what your actual expenditures were. Okay. And that is a function of, there's a federal credit. So no matter where you're located in the US, you can qualify for that one. And then I would say 39, 40 states out of 50 have an R&D credit at the state level as well. So state income tax offset.
Yeah. So you're saying 6 to 20% of those expenses. So if we spend $100,000, we could maybe get 10%, just say that because it's easy math for me sitting here today. That's $10,000 as a tax credit. Now that tax credit is not a deduction on my income. It is actually, if I have to end up paying the government $20,000 for my taxes, I now pay them $10,000.
That's right. You've got really good head math. Really good head math, Damon.
See, Duncan, I told you it's like grade school here today, right?
Yeah. I mean, well,
you know what? And I was generous at saying what I say earlier, 2nd or 3rd grade. My wife's a preschool teacher, Duncan, so we're probably at the preschool level when you're dealing with me. And
I get above 10 fingers.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't wear shoes and socks today because I was prepared to count. So hey, we've got a question. Let's get
that up here. We got Duncan. Do you get any pushback from prospects who may think this is too good to be true?
We get that comment, but it's not usually pushback. It just leads to more questions, and they're like, wait a second. So I get the deduction first and I get a credit on top of that. And it's like, yeah, it's been a double dip type credit for decades.
Okay.
There is a little bit of a change that happened. We can go into this later if you guys want, but there's a legislative change that happened starting in 2022 and later Congress is currently trying to reverse that. But in those cases where 2022 or 2023 credits, you don't necessarily get the same double dipping of deduction and credit. You get a small deduction, but it's a lot smaller than it used to be, and then you still get the full credit on top of that.
Okay. So Duncan, when we talk offline, it might be of your interest. You should be hooking up with e-commerce agencies who are implementing massive six-figure projects. Damon, we have numerous friends, and we need to definitely connect Duncan
with a few people. My head is spinning now.
Chris Harrington and our friends at BigCommerce. We just had Adobe Commerce on the show Monday, so
Adobe, BigCommerce, yeah.
So, all right. So let's go here, Duncan. All right. So obviously we're telling the conversation. We're excited about that whole e-commerce thing. Let's go to the manufacturer. Let's look. I want to go a couple places. Let's take the OEM, original equipment manufacturer. They've been manufacturing widgets for a long time, but maybe they've created some new widgets in addition to their current line. Are they applicable for this tax credit? Could you walk us through? I've invented a new mousetrap, the better mousetrap, better than my old one. Am I applicable for this tax credit?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. And just to kind of lay a foundation, I want to touch briefly on what's called the 4-part test. Okay.
All right.
We can count that. We're in preschool. 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2. All right. I'm marking these down, and I'm going to repeat them as you go. So remember, we got to bring it at a preschool level. So, all right. Number 1, please.
Okay. Number 1 is creating a new product or process. Okay. So manufacturers are great candidates because they're typically creating new products. Sometimes manufacturers, they might not be creating a new product, but they're typically always trying to improve their manufacturing process. Maybe they're trying to make it more lean. Maybe they're trying to make it more reliable. Maybe they're trying to increase the quality of their product. And that can be that can qualify for this first part of the 4-part test, product or process. Number 2 needs to be based on one of those 4 sciences that I mentioned: biological science, physical science, computer science, or engineering. I guess that's not a science, but that's the last one. So manufacturers, we're typically going to qualify that under engineering, and it's a home run. It's probably the most common R&D credit industry in the country. Recent figures, 59% of all corporate R&D credits were related to the manufacturing industry for this last year. So
59%.
That's number 2. Okay. Number 3, at the outset of creating your new product or process, there has to be some level of technical uncertainty, is what they call it. That can be uncertainty like we're not sure what product we want to make. It can be uncertainty like we kind of know what product, but we don't know what the design should be. Or with our process, we know how we want to improve the process, but we don't know how much better it's going to make our end results, right? So there's uncertainty there. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is you're engaged in a process of experimentation, which can include things like trial and error testing, modeling, prototyping, simulation, different things like that, where you're really just going through a process to try and refine your design. You're trying to make it as good as you can, and that usually takes time, right? And so that's a big part of when we go and do our study and we assess how much time people are spending on these types of activities. That's usually one of the biggest ones, is like, we're not sure what the design is. We're going to test it. We're going to try something. We didn't like that. We're going to iterate on that a little bit, test it again. Okay, now we got it. So that's number 4, process of experimentation.
Okay, let's go ahead, Duncan. Keep going.
Yep. So having laid that foundation in the manufacturing industry, like you mentioned, Curt, there's a lot of activities that companies are engaged in that kind of fall under this umbrella, right? Things like optimizing your manufacturing process, things like improving your product quality. Maybe you're developing a 2nd or 3rd generation product. It's not the same as the original product you created, but it's an improved product, right? It doesn't even have to be something completely different. It can be the same base product, but an improvement on it, right? Like version 2.0. Sometimes you have people who are involved in the tooling, right? In the equipment fixture design. Maybe you have to change your process for how you're tooling and machining up to create a manufacturing run, right? Prototyping, that's a big one. Anytime you're starting to create a new product, you have to come up with those prototypes to make sure that you have minimum viable product and all that. Maybe sometimes you're involved in alternative material testing. So generally the same product, but you found a new material that maybe is cheaper or maybe is stronger or higher quality. And so you start to try to create your product with that material. And that requires time and effort and testing. Doing things like trying to become more cost effective. Things where you're trying to just improve your product performance. Okay. So these are just a few examples, but hopefully that gives you an idea of the kind of thing that we're looking for qualifying for this credit.
Damon, Duncan just started studying this stuff like a week ago. That's pretty impressive, Duncan, that you've learned all this like in a week.
Is.
I just cannot believe, I'm just teasing, he's been doing this for his whole career. So Duncan, this is super impressive. I usually wait to the end on this. I in case people need to sneak off, and you're not going anywhere yet, please. Where can people find you? Because this is just
this is really important.
You're laying out like pure gold. Where can people find you? Please talk about your firm. You're on LinkedIn, obviously. And then we're going to keep going. We're going to do this again at the end. But I've never done this before. I feel like people need to know where to connect with you.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. So I'm with B10 Capital. We're a tax incentives and strategy firm for business owners and high net worth individuals. R&D tax credits is one of our many service lines that we offer. I've been doing R&D tax credits for most of my career as a CPA.
Nice.
You can find me on LinkedIn, Duncan Glenn. My email is duncan@b10cap.com. You can shoot me an email if you have any questions. And then, our website, b10cap.com, if you want to learn more about what we do.
Very cool. Very cool. We got another guest here too while we're taking a break. We got Gail.
Gail. She's 8, Damon. She's going to be on the show in a few weeks. So Gail, I need to shoot you a note. So happy Friday, Gail.
Akib, thanks for stopping by today. We got Timothy back too.
Timothy from Amsterdam. Timothy, happy Friday to you.
We got MD stopping by today saying hello to everyone.
Hey, MD.
Thanks so much for the comments, everyone, and keep them coming. So let me do this. Boom, there we go. But my mind is just, and you can tell my mind is racing, right? Because this is, we're talking about manufacturers. It's got to be far reaching beyond manufacturers. But when we look at this and you're in these manufacturers, I've got to imagine once you start talking to them, there are just things that fall out that are just like, okay, here's some more. Here's some more that you never thought about. And then they're thinking to themselves, I am so mad that I missed out on 20 years of this.
Yep, for sure. And one of the good pieces of news that we can share is that if you didn't know about this credit and you're wanting to learn more about it and get into it and take advantage of it, you can actually retroactively claim this for the last 3 years.
Oh my goodness.
So not 20 years, but at least they give us 3.
3 years is awesome because some of these people have laid out tremendous amounts of money, like you said, to change process, to change whatever they're doing, and not just digitally but physically and all this, and retroactive for 3 years. Whew.
Yep. So if we think about it, it's from the time that you filed your tax return, right? So we're still doing tax year 2020 returns, and they'll go and amend those because those were the ones that were filed in 2021, right? So if you extended that, some people extended that out to July, August, September. Yeah. You've still got some time. Go back and claim 2020. We prepare all the documentation and R&D tax credit study and substantiation. We provide that to your CPA so that they're able to do a quick and easy amended tax return and get your refunds for you.
Yeah.
2020 is still in play, 2021. And then, like I mentioned, 2022 and 2023, there were some legislative changes that made it not as lucrative to claim this credit. But again, there's there's legislation in the works right now where they're trying to change that because they know that it has really stifled the amount of the amount that people are investing into R&D in their companies because of how it is right now.
So Duncan, I'm all right. Asking another really, I thank you for your patience and your tolerance putting up with my dumb questions today. So, when you talk about the four, right? We talk about product, process, the sciences, tech uncertainty. We talk about, I can't even read my last writing, experimental, the trial and error, right? Okay. So if I've got those four down, I mean, arguably it's almost every function of a manufacturer. Are there things that are not, is there a reason not to do this? Is there a reason when would a manufacturer not want to pursue this?
I mean, that's what we say all the time. Like we feel like it's the gospel, right? You just got to preach it to everybody because there's just not enough knowledge in the country about this. And so, and to the defense of most CPAs out there, they do really have their hands full with all the complex tax law just to get things filed properly and make sure all the forms are there and everything. So, but that's kind of why I started specializing, is because I saw the value of this credit and thought to myself, like, if CPAs are afraid to claim this because they don't know enough about it, they're worried about an audit and different things like that.
Right.
I want to learn about it, get confident to where we don't need to be afraid of an audit because we're following the law exactly to a T. And we're claiming, really what is rightfully ours because of the nature of the business that we're in and our culture of innovation and really just being competitive, trying to stay competitive with other firms out there. So,
all right, Damon, I want to take a little pivot here if you don't mind, because one of my favorite lines of all time, niche down, right? And so, Duncan, we on this program, as a matter of fact, I just went to coffee with a guy this morning. He's an attorney, and apparently he must watch us on LinkedIn. He's like, "Yeah, I know, Curt, you're Mr. Niche Down, right?" And so, just nice. I'm gonna, Duncan, what you could be a general practitioner, you could be, the all around accountant, just superstar guy that you are. What inspired you years ago to how did you pick this? And are you, and again, I know you're a very humble guy. Do you feel like you're kind of like building a reputation nationally renowned of like the R&D guy? Like walk us through your process and what it's done for you as an entrepreneur and as as an accountant, please.
Sure. Yeah, no. So, my background right out of school was learning just the basics of corporate tax, LLCs, partnerships, S corps, individuals, and it was interesting. It was good, but the thing that I was lacking was the general public doesn't necessarily appreciate a tax return filed correctly. It's kind of a necessary evil for them. Right?
Wait, Duncan. I have to interrupt. I'm sorry. I'm 55. They're supposed to be accurate? Are they? I didn't know that. Damon, why did you give me? I didn't get the memo. Our tax returns are supposed to be accurate. I didn't.
Someone that's kind of important.
If the IRS is out there, I'm just kidding. Don't.
Yep. So, I dabbled in the R&D credit during those times, and I always felt so much better whenever there was a company that had this R&D piece involved in their tax return. I was like, wow, they're saving so much money from this. And it really just inspired me because of the value proposition. And then the more I learned that so many CPAs don't feel comfortable claiming this because they don't know Section 41, they don't know Section 174, they don't know the case law. It's like, okay, well, I could maybe carve out a niche for myself, and it's going to feel a lot better because you're bringing so much value to these businesses and these clients. And so that's kind of what inspired me. And the more I've gone on, I was doing R&D at that original firm, like I said, but I wanted to specialize and only do R&D. So I left to a company out of California that specializes in those. And during that time, just in my regular networking activities, I ran into the guys at B10 Capital, and they said, "Hey, we've been wanting to kind of add this arrow to our quiver. Would you want to come start that up for us?" And like you said, that was a big part of my entrepreneurial journey because they hadn't done R&D before.
Yeah.
But they brought me in with my experience and said, we know you can do it, so let's start it from scratch. And that's where we are today. That was 3 years ago. So
wow.
Nice.
All right. I
That's
absolutely
cool
love
as
it.
heck, dude.
We're coming into the top of the hour. Hey, Damon Harry's here today.
Oh yeah, we got Harry Flaherty today. Thanks
Happy-
for stopping by today. Happy
To
Friday.
you, Harry. And so, Harry, you're gonna love this. So, all right, let's dive right back in. So, love what you've done. Just I admire what you've done with your career. I love how you've niched down. Man, you're just like you're like the poster child of what we love to preach here, Duncan. And on top of it, you're like Santa Claus, like giving money,
Yeah.
just building profit opportunities for literally almost every manufacturer. So like, we should be screaming this from the rooftops. So if anybody's missed it, I don't want to do a total recap, but let's dive in. Do you have some examples that you could give us? Like, do you have, without giving away secret sauce or client confidentiality, but do you have some examples of like, you must just have some wonderful success stories of, ABC manufacturer, Mr. and Mrs. Entrepreneur just loves Duncan because he found this. Do you have a couple of stories or anything like that you could share?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So one of my favorite ones is we did an R&D study for a company on the West Coast. They manufacture winches, right? So I don't know if you guys are familiar with what a winch is, but massive piece of machinery that goes on either a tugboat or on a naval ship, right? It's got these massive winding spools. It's a way for them to move ships in and out of harbor. And this company built custom winches for all different kinds of ships, right? And so we were able to go in there, identify what they were doing. Some of their stuff was fairly routine, right? Like they had kind of a line that's like, okay, if you're this size, this shape, this is the one for you. We already know that. But they had so many that were not like that. They had so many that they had to get their engineers in there. They had to design it. They had to, one of them they had to put below deck was one of my favorites. They put it below deck, and that really constrained the amount of space that they had to work with to build this winch and to design it and put it in there. And so we did a study for them, and they were able to save over a period of 2 years. We did a 2-year look back on that one, and it was almost $500,000.
Oh my goodness!
But Duncan, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. How much was it?
$500,000. Yeah,
$500,000 of just found tax credit opportunity.
Yep.
Straight profit because it's all money. Modified taxes.
Exactly.
Straight profit.
So it's just stories like that where I'm like, man, if you don't know about this, like, just imagine how much that can help infuse back into your business, hire a couple more heads, build some more infrastructure. Like, it just can transform your business.
That's insane.
So Duncan, let's go here. Let's talk about, and I don't know, size of that company. Was that a large company or mid-size or?
I think it was just mid-size. Yeah. I can't remember the revenues off the top of my head, but I think the revenues were in the 20 to 50 million range. So mid-size company.
Still significant money for them.
For sure.
Let's go here. If there's any entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, smaller companies out there, let's go. Could you just share a couple of examples of like maybe things that you've experienced or possible opportunities for smaller manufacturers, smaller entrepreneurs that maybe, it's what taxes are a week from today, right? Isn't it March 15th? And so we timed this perfectly, right? You've got one week to figure this out, Damon. So Duncan, any smaller examples that you can think of
absolutely.
Yeah, please.
We do a bunch of 7 to 10 to 15 employee companies. We do a lot in the manufacturing realm. One of them that I really enjoyed doing was a company out of Utah here, and they manufacture supplements, right? So they're involved in the formulations, changing all kinds of formulations, figuring out what works, how it affects the body, right? So we got the biological science aspect in there.
Yep.
Smaller company, but we were able to save them. I believe it was 20. It was either 20 or 25,000 per year. Right. So just
wow.
These things just add up, and it's one of those things where if you're already doing the types of activities just in the ordinary course of business, then it's really, you don't have to change anything. You just take advantage of dollars that are on the table.
recalculate it every year and move forward. And then it's like added profitability every year for you.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the thing is, it's really creating inspiring innovation.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Is that how you would describe it, Duncan? It's just
Absolutely.
really.
Yep. The whole intent of Congress was to try to keep jobs here in the U.S. in these different tech sectors.
Right.
And, nowadays, I'm sure you guys are familiar, there's a lot of offshoring that happens with, like, let's say software development in particular, right? And the purpose of this credit is to try to say, hey, bring it back here. Bring it back here.
Yeah.
Use our expertise, discover new things, advance the fields, these different fields of science and engineering, and let's try to stay competitive in the world marketplace.
Right. All right.
So cool.
All right, guys. So here, if you have any questions, drop that in the chat box. I strongly encourage you connect. If you're a manufacturer out there, and even if you're not solopreneur, you have some tax questions, or this is sparking a chord where you're like, hey, wait a minute, maybe I qualify for this. Definitely reach out to Duncan. Maybe some of our friends across the pond, maybe not as relevant, but check your local tax laws. What might be relevant for you, right? Damon, what do you have?
Yeah, I just, we're sitting here talking about so many different things, and I think of a manufacturing business, and I think there's so much process innovation that's done outside of the manufacturing floor. Like you said, could be we're adding e-commerce, could be that we need a new ERP system or some integrations into our ERP systems to change, or even just some simple process where we're spending some outside resources, internal. I mean, are those other ancillary kind of things where we're developing a new process for our company with computers, with AI, with all that kind of stuff? Is that something that they should be looking at too?
Yeah, we should absolutely look at it. Sometimes if it's like a basic CRM or ERP that you just purchase off the shelf and kind of read the instructions and start, then no. But if you're adding like custom API integrations to your ERP, stuff like that, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then process improvement for sure. It goes back to the 4-part test that we talked about, right? So if we can tie that process improvement to the engineering side of things,
right,
or the computer science side of things, then absolutely we should be looking at that.
Yeah, because I think, Curt, you just think about the integration of different systems. Right. And not with standard stuff, with all the things that you have to look at with API, EDI, and then the systems that actually move the stuff back and forth and getting them all to work together. There's a tremendous amount of outside resources that people spend every day to figure out how to move data in between our CRM, our ERP, and it could be financial systems or any outside systems that. I mean, the manufacturers are really becoming so tech centric that there's all these things working together. Yeah, it's not just the physical product production.
Right.
Yep. And you mentioned AI, right? Like the more companies try to automate and use AI and other things to improve the speed, improve the efficiency, like all of that stuff should be looked at for qualification, because most likely it's going to qualify.
Now, Duncan, in my feeble attempt to pretend that I knew what I was talking about today, I did a little homework, and I have a question for you. Is there such a thing as the 80% rule? I don't know if you've covered it already and I missed it, but I did. Am I close on that question? Do I sound confident with that question? What is the 80% rule?
That's impressive, Curt. I appreciate that. So the 80% rule, there's actually a couple different 80% rules. The one that most people are probably a little more familiar with is if let's say I've got an engineer on my staff and he's pretty much all day, every day, except for when he goes to the bathroom or he travels or he's punching in his time clock, he's working on new product, right? So if in the end we come up with, okay, he spent 85% of his time on qualifying activities. Well, Congress put in the rules that if you're 80% or more, you can actually count 100% of that person's wages. Okay. So you got a little bit of a buffer there, 20% buffer to say, hey, if we can hit that 80% threshold and justify that, then we get to count all of their wages. The other 80% rule is that the way that you kind of identify the qualifying activities is you do it by project, right? So let's say One project is creating a new product on the manufacturing floor.
Yep.
The way that we kind of view that is they want 80% or more of the time spent to be on a process of experimentation, right? And that's usually pretty easy to hit because of the way that you define the business component, which is that first part of the 4-part test, the new product. You say, okay, we started here from scratch. We got to here to where we're in production. Once we got into production, R&D is over, right? So from that start to finish point, if 80% of that was the testing, the simulation, the iterating on the design, then you're good to go. And that's usually pretty easy to get.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for that clarification. I'm glad that worked out well. So
Yeah.
Damon, there's just so much
value
with this conversation. And I hope anybody that's here today, hey, we've got a great comment from Timothy if we want to grab that here. So
and this is a good example of this kind of thing is he's talking about that's one of their services with the company he's with. They're doing API integrations and all of that stuff is customized. I mean, because APIs are unique for systems and the different people that are using them. So
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So in that case, what we would look at is to see, depending on how your customers are paying you, if you're doing custom API integration for clients, right? That's like you're doing the service for them. It's either you would qualify or they would qualify, right? And that just kind of depends on what the contractual language is. I don't want to get too technical here, but definitely whenever you're involved with API integration, we want to absolutely look at that.
Yeah. Okay, man. All right. So let's start winding down. I'm going to be mindful of your time because, man, it's tax season, Duncan. You have a lot of money to save for our manufacturers out there, right? And your clients. Let's start winding down. Is there anything that we didn't cover? If you want to just kind of put a bow on things, anything that you want to wrap up as we're covering this whole topic today?
Yeah, just anytime that you come across somebody else or in your own business where there's a culture of innovation, right? New products, new processes. We should definitely be looking at trying to save money through the R&D tax credit, something that Congress wants companies to be taking advantage of. Again, I know we mentioned it briefly. There is current legislation in place right now. It has passed the U.S. House of Representatives. It's awaiting action in the Senate right now. But basically what that law would do is kind of restore the R&D credit to its former glory. Right now, we still have 2020 and 2021 in play under the old rules that are the very, very good rules. So that's what we would want to look at. And then hopefully in the next month or two here, we open up 22 and 23 as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Great question. Hey, Damon, Trish is.
Trish
is on the show next week, and she's got a question here. So, Trish Stewart, dear friend, she's a global expert. And Damon, what do you got?
She said, "Is it too late to apply savings to 2023?" And Duncan, you've explained this a little bit, but explain it to Trish the change in legislation and how that's affecting them now for 2023.
Yep. So it's not too late, Trish. Again, you can go back up to 3 years in the past.
Yeah.
So we're still doing 2020 tax returns. We're amending them, and then you get refunds. So for 2023, definitely not too late. One thing you would need to keep in mind is they require a capitalization of your Section 174 costs, which are your R&D costs, right? So normally, like I mentioned, you got the deduction and the credit. In this case, you have a much smaller deduction with the credit. So sometimes it ends up resulting in more tax. We can look at that situation on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes people have losses that are carrying forward, so it doesn't hurt them. And technically, if you have any sort of R&D type expenditures, you are required to do that capitalization under the rules, right? So, we kind of say if you have never claimed the R&D credit and you're looking to start claiming it, it might be a little risk, but probably wait until that law changes because that's when you're really going to see the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Now, Duncan, for anybody out there, though you're in Utah, you cover nationally. So any state that somebody is out there, they can certainly reach out to you on LinkedIn, drop you an email, drop you a note, and you can kind of coach them, walk them through so any state you are able to help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any state that has a viable R&D program, we take that into consideration whenever we provide our estimates to you.
Yep.
And by the way, we do a free consultation on all of this. We won't ever charge you a dime unless we know that we're going to save you money and you want to work with us. So
wow.
Don't be afraid to reach out and just get your assessment.
Awesome.
Did I hear the word, Damon? Did I hear my favorite word, free?
Yeah,
I think why don't you repeat that one more time? Did I hear you say free?
Yeah, we do a free assessment up front. We want to find out if you qualify first and then how much you qualify for. And if you like that, those dollars on the table, right, then and you want to go through the process with us, then at that point we sign an engagement letter and share the fees and all that stuff. But it doesn't hurt at all to try and just see if you qualify and how much you potentially qualify for.
You know what, Duncan, Damon, I'm showing my age.
Free money.
I'm probably showing my age. People probably don't, the old Jerry Maguire, show me the money. So Duncan, next time you come on the show, we're just going to call this show me the money, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going to, yeah.
That's all right.
Making it rain.
All right, let's start winding down. So Duncan, we have a number. As a matter of fact, you and Trish need to connect. Trish is our guest next Friday.
Happy Friday from Robbie too.
Everybody in the chat box here, please connect with Duncan. Do yourself a favor. Go back if you are a manufacturer, entrepreneur here in the States, and you want to get a better understanding. Boy, we covered a lot. Now Duncan did a nice job. He kept it at a preschool level for myself and Damon. Just keep it simple, but go back and rewind. Go and just follow what he shared here today, and just better yet, get that free consultation because he's here. Damon, $25,000 for one small manufacturer, $500,000 for another manufacturer. There's just an incredible, enormous opportunity out there.
Not messing around.
Hey, how about a big round of applause for Duncan Glenn today? So just absolutely hitting the ball out of the park.
Yeah.
Damon, speaking of hitting the ball out of the park, should we ask him I have one last question. Should I ask him that question or should we just
let's do it?
Should we do it? Duncan, my friend, we're besties now, aren't we? We're besties.
Yeah,
are we tight? All right.
Sure.
I have one last question for you. Okay. And it's pertinent. So let's go here. Now, I know you're a basketball fan. We're talking about March Madness. Are you a baseball fan? You're a Bay Area guy. Are you Giants?
Giants, yep.
You're Giants guy. Okay. Barry Bonds, maybe. So
Barry Bonds. Will Clark back in the
Will
day.
Clark back in dude, you're going way back. I didn't think you were old enough for Will Clark. I was a big Will Clark fan. Okay, so all right, Giants are playing the hated Dodgers, right? If you're a Giant, like you do not like, right? Okay, you feel the momentum, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's bottom of the ninth, guy on second base, 2 outs, Giants are up. Okay, tie score, bottom of the ninth, guy in second base. Manager standing we need a hit. We need to win this game. Turns down the bench and says, "Hey, Glenn, grab your helmet, grab your bat, get up there. I need a single. We got to get this running, dude. We got to wrap this game up, right? We need this win." You walk up, you grab your helmet, you grab your bat, you're strolling up to the plate. You're in the zone. As you walk to the plate, what is your walk-up song?
My walk-up song. I'm gonna go with Still Dre.
What song?
Still Dre. Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg.
Damon, you got it? Still Dre. You got to pull it.
I don't have it. I'm not.
That's not on your. That's Dre. Dr. Dre's not on your Spotify.
Yeah, it's on my Spotify, but my phone's charging. So
let's do AC/DC TNT.
There you go.
TNT.
That'd be another
right. So man, Dr. Dre, TNT, dude, you got a winner right there, man.
Yeah.
You got an absolute.
No one
right
has brought up Dr. Dre.
Dr. Dre and AC/DC, dude. That's like 2 negatives make a positive, right?
Yeah,
there.
it is.
So I don't know. So anyway. All right, Duncan, great answer. Thank you for playing our little game right there. I appreciate it. Again, people can find you at is it Duncan? What's your email?
Duncan at B10Cap.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, guys, connect with Duncan on LinkedIn. Drop him an email. Boy, he's here to help you save money, make money. Shoot him a note. He's got a free consultation for you guys. So, man, Duncan, thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody in the crowd today. Thank you for joining us. Again, lots of valuable information here. Damon, you want to take it away, my friend?
Yeah, this has been just wonderful. Thanks so much, Duncan, for being here today. We're talking about research and development tax credit for manufacturers. Uncovered so many great things. If you were listening, Dow came in late, go back to the beginning, because these are tax credits that actually reduce your taxes dollar for dollar. And just go back and do a little math and think in at how much that really makes a difference for you. So let's go back to the beginning, reach out to Duncan and learn more about these R&D tax credits. It can help you do more with your business. And it's not a one-time thing. You can go back up to 3 years. He said, we're still doing some 2020 tax return stuff on this. So, hey, check it out and see what it can help you with.
Damon, hey, real quick. So Trish says, hey, happy International Women's Day. So
yep, we got to say that too.
Your favorite women in your life. So I know, Duncan, you've got favorite women in your life. So everybody out there, give a big hug, high five, and appreciation to, and here Inger says the same thing. Inger, happy Friday to you, my friend. As a matter of fact, Trish, we'll celebrate International Women's Day with you next Friday. We're just going to make it the whole month anyway. So, all right, guys. Hey, we'll close out. Have an amazing weekend. God bless you guys, and just go out and be someone's inspiration, just like our dear friend Duncan was today. And we will see you here on Monday.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, everyone.